Netflix knows July is too hot to do anything other than Netflix and literally chill, so they've totally stacked their offerings for the month. But in case you get overwhelmed with possibility, we've got you. Just start here. 2013's American Hustle is a 70s-set crime caper full of screaming, kissing, jokes, hairpieces, and funky-dressed men being chased around various hotel rooms and hallways. The comedy is dark and the cast star-studded. David O. Russell directs leads Bradley Cooper, Christian Bale, Jeremy Renner, Amy Adams, and Jennifer Lawrence.
He wasn't necessarily in good shape, and he had this comb-over that was rather elaborate.
Come for the big hair and stay for the high drama, not to mention a Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 92%. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man walked so Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man could walk faster and Tom Holland's Spider-Man could run. But before the Marvel Cinematic Universe was a glimmer in Kevin Feige's eye, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy packed in more iconic superhero moments than you can count, including memorable big bad turns from Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina, and a deliciously cringy dance sequence in the third film. Whether you know and love the trilogy already or have yet to experience the magic of MJ and Spidey's legendary kiss, this July is the time to check it out while Netflix is making it easy. 1999's Big Daddy happens to be that rare jewel of a film that combines big laughs and questionable amounts of heart.
Found someone.
This old guy?
He has a 5-year plan.
What is it, don't die?
Big Daddy follows Adam Sandler's Sonny Koufax, a man-child who adopts a kid to impress a girlfriend who left him for a more mature man. The movie is high concept in a way only 90s Adam Sandler movies were allowed to be. Plus, the actors who play Koufax's adopted kid, Julian Frankenstein McGrath, are none other than Cole and Dylan Sprouse of The Suite Life of Zack and Cody fame. The siblings Sprouse aren't the only stars of this movie who would go on to be a pretty big deal. Jon Stewart plays Koufax's lawyer in the movie, which came out in 1999, the same year Stewart would take over as host of The Daily Show. A time travel trilogy might just be the ultimate nostalgia watch. Robert Zemeckis' Back to the Future trilogy hits Netflix in July, which is a perfect time to revisit the movies that made the phrase "I'm your density" famous, not to mention jumpin' gigawatts.
What the hell is a gigawatt?
The movies are a showcase for Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd and are critically adored, with Rotten Tomatoes critic scores of 93%, 63%, and 81% respectively. Part of why 1985's Back to the Future and its sequels have stood the test of time is because they're actually about how we feel about time. The movies are heartfelt, funny comedies with just enough heartbreak to remind us how we run out of time just when we figure out the most valuable thing to spend it on: our loved ones and ourselves. Roald Dahl knew how to write a twisted tale for children.
Fresh meat.
1996's Matilda is one such tale. Matilda follows young, sweet, smart Matilda Wormwood, played by Mara Wilson, as she navigates her newfound psychic abilities around the worst adults in the world. Her parents, played by Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman. Matilda is essentially the cozy family comedy version of Eleven's journey in Stranger Things, with the wicked headmistress Trunchbull standing in for Vecna. But let's face it, Trunchbull could eat Demogorgons for breakfast. The antics in this movie have its Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter score at a solid 92%.
Snickerdoodle, what did you do to your hair?
If you've already seen Matilda, you know it's a zany, full-out feat of cinematic insanity that takes the inherent sweetness of Matilda finding both herself and a family that really loves her along for a wild, hectic ride. If you haven't seen it yet, what are you waiting for? Oh wait, we know. Netflix in July. There was a time when you couldn't pass a $10 DVD bin without a copy of Zombieland beckoning to you from inside it. Times have changed, just like the zombie-infested world depicted in Zombieland. One thing hasn't changed since this dark zombie road trip comedy's original release in 2009, though. It's still as funny, touching, and gorifically disgusting in equal measure. Zombieland also packs a dream team of a cast. Everyone knows Jesse Eisenberg, Emma Stone, Woody Harrelson, and Abigail Breslin are terrific dramatic actors. Zombieland proves they're also a great comedic team, so much so that they reunited for a belated sequel, 2019 Zombieland Double Tap. Zombieland's Rotten Tomatoes critic score sits pretty at 89%, which proves that some critics must have gotten infected by a zombie virus, since that number should read a healthy 100%. While the movie is packed with both funny moments and gruesome scenes, it has a heart of gold. Plus, it's worth watching for a certain surprise appearance alone. Before Emma Stone was winning Oscars for strange fare like Poor Things and movie musicals like La La Land, the versatile young actress cut her teeth on comedies. 2010's Easy A is a great example of her comedic talent, and it's a great movie in its own right. In it, teenager Olive, played by Stone, an all-around good kid who doesn't have a ton of experience to her name, tells a little white lie about losing her virginity.
I am tormented every day at school. Just one good imaginary fling.
Soon the story spreads around school, and Olive must contend with her newfound persona, including its perks and pitfalls. The movie is a loose update of The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne and examines the shame heaped upon teenage girls as they come into their own sexuality.
Perhaps you should embroider a red A on your wardrobe.
While this exploration is neither thorough nor groundbreaking, the movie is really funny, and it also stars Stanley Tucci as one of the best cinematic dads in the biz. The movie holds an 85% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. The late legendary film critic Roger Ebert wrote, "Easy A is a funny, engaging comedy that takes the familiar but underrated Emma Stone and makes her, I believe, a star. Until actors are matched to the right role, we can never quite see them clearly. Everyone sees Emma Stone clearly now, and you can see her in Easy A on Netflix in July." When it comes to creative killer mechanisms in horror movies, 2017's Jigsaw does its best by throwing laser cutter collars into the mix. Jigsaw is the 8th movie in the Saw franchise, and like all of its predecessors, its bad guys want to play a game of how much can you appreciate life when your own hangs in the balance, or at least hangs very near a wall of buzzsaws.
We can never come from anger or from vengeance.
You can answer this question for yourself when Jigsaw comes to Netflix in July. The movie only has a 33% Rotten Tomatoes score, but it does have a barn of death, traps, and gore galore, plus a decent mystery storyline. In a 2017 interview with Entertainment Weekly, co-director Michael Spierig said, "It's such a perfect Halloween scarefest. It's perhaps not quite as vicious and more fun, which is something we tried to inject into it."
You wanna get punished?
Is Magic Mike based on a true story? And does it really matter? Because the 2015 sequel, Magic Mike XXL, has scenes that are too good to be true, and yet they exist.
Are you ready to be worshipped? Are you ready to be exalted?
Even if the rest of the movie was just guys driving around talking, which, spoiler, it basically is, Magic Mike XXL gives us two of the finest dance scenes in recent cinematic memory. Channing Tatum's Mike dancing to Genuine's pony in his workshop, and Joe Manganiello as Richie dancing for his life in a gas station snack shop to the Backstreet Boys' I Want It That Way. The gas station dance scene is funny and sweet as Richie gets his dancing groove back, while his buddies cheer him on. You can't feel sad watching this scene, even if you agree with the rather average 65% Rotten Tomatoes critic score for the film's overall plot and characters. Keep in mind that Magic Mike films are hangout movies more than anything else. Did you know you missed a 2017 space horror film starring Rebecca Ferguson, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Ryan Reynolds? The movie's called Life, and it follows a group of astronauts aboard an international space station who discover life, then maybe wish they hadn't. The life in question is responsible for wiping out life on Mars, and Earth may just be next.
It's gonna be a big custody battle over this one.
This stylish sci-fi thriller calls to mind space horror classics like The Thing and Alien, and holds a respectable 68% Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter score. Directed by Daniel Espinosa, the Life screenplay was written by Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, the screenwriting team behind Zombieland and the Deadpool franchise. The live-action ensemble comedy feels like something of a relic these days, but the 90s and early 2000s were full of them. So much so, in fact, that sweet and strong high-concept comedies starring Anna Faris sometimes didn't get the attention they deserved, not to mention love from critics. 2008's The House Bunny is one such comedy.
Okay, this is your most important secret weapon, the water bra.
A measly 43% on Rotten Tomatoes? Come on. Perhaps the movie will find a new audience all these years later. The movie is written by Karen McCullough and Kirsten Smith, who also wrote the teen comedy classic 10 Things I Hate About You. The House Bunny is about Shelley Darlingson, played by Ferris, a Playboy playmate who finds herself kicked out of the Playboy mansion with nowhere to stay except an unpopular sorority house on a nearby college campus. She can stay in the house if she can get the sorority's enrollment up and win over her new roommates while they teach each other valuable life lessons along the way.
First, we must highlight your eyes. The eyes are the nipples of the face.
Joining Ferris in a killer cast are Emma Stone and Kat Dennings, and in a pair of cameo appearances, former Playmate Holly Madison and Hugh Hefner. There's nothing like 1978's The Wiz, except maybe 1939's The Wizard of Oz. The Wiz transports the story of Oz to 1970s New York City and uses the 70s Broadway musical of the same name as its source material. Legend Diana Ross plays Dorothy, a young schoolteacher who gets swept into an adventure with a cast of characters like the Scarecrow, played by Michael Jackson, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. The Wiz himself is played by legendary comedian Richard Pryor. While The Wiz has long been an audience favorite, it polarized critics, holding a 44% Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter score. Take a look and judge the movie for yourself when the musical eases on into Netflix. 1984's The Karate Kid was the first entry in a decade-spanning film franchise and TV spinoff, but back then the movie stood on its own 2 feet as it waxed on and waxed off, fighting its way into our hearts and pop culture.
How did you do that? Don't know. First time.
The film is filled with both heart and comedy and centers on the relationship between a troubled young kid and his unlikely mentor, a war vet and handyman who knows his way around a karate kick. Daniel LaRusso, played by Ralph Macchio, and Mr. Miyagi, played by Pat Morita, are the real reason The Karate Kid has stood the test of time. Their dynamic is at the heart of this movie and the entire series, and is the model all future Karate Kid installments are based on. Unsurprisingly, The Karate Kid was a smash hit upon release and holds a 90% Rotten Tomatoes critic score. Today, it spawned a long-running YouTube premium series that leapt over to Netflix, Cobra Kai. You can go back to basics and the inspiration for all of the Karate Kid media by watching the original when it hits Netflix in July.